Hey everyone, welcome to another Musings on. This is an album release themed one from 1992, as you know if you've seen the other ones. I'm working through the 90s, but I'm doing it in a rather unusual way, and I'm working from either end, so sort of flip-flopping back between the start and the end of the 90s until I get to somewhere in the middle. So, 1992. Best-selling albums from that year is a good place to start, I think. I'll do my usual thing. I'll go through, talk just generally about the year, get into specific albums that still hold a musical place in my heart, even today. And then we'll look at the album releases generally, both in terms of general stuff, plus stuff on the more extreme music side of things, because I always like to keep a track of where I was in the 90s on that sort of music genre timeline and what I was sort of listening to. And I find that my interest in heavy music at a particular time is quite a good yardstick as to what was going on in terms of stuff that was influencing me and I was into. 92, so 91 to 93 I was working as a quality control manager in a lab that was attached to a manufacturing plant that made in vitro diagnostic kits for antimicrobial susceptibility testing and also bacterial identification. And I'd actually worked there since leaving school in 81. So yeah, by that time I was up to my, beyond my 10-year mark. I'm trying to remember what I got for 10 years. Oh yeah, I got one of those little carriage clocks, which were all the rage back then for 10 years of service. I actually left the firm in 93, and we'll get around to that and what I did next. But so 92, right in the middle of my tenure as a quality control manager. But it was pretty hard going. I was sort of down a senior tech. We were down a junior tech. Who else were we down? We didn't have a prep guy, so we had someone there working that used to do all the cleanup to do with the sheer amount of like glass work we used to get through for testing, and also disposing of contaminated materials, that sort of thing, autoclaving. And what happened was there'd been a series of redundancies, and over time everything had been like stripped right back. So we were basically working pretty much half-staffed. Plus there was some legacy stuff I was still doing from my previous job there as a quality, what was it now called now? Quality support project leader, where I was doing process improvement work using computers, and also other things as well to do with computerization of certain processes and migrating them onto PCs, like IBM clones. So it was an interesting time, but very frantic. So you can see here another quite common thing. We're talking about best-selling albums, and this is in British music. I tend to do a bit of a focus. I'll tell you when I flip-flop between sort of US best-ofs and UK best-ofs when I get to the films. But for our music side of things, I like to really focus on, obviously I was in the UK at the time. It was well before I moved to Nova Scotia. So it's quite handy for me to just keep it within the general music ecosystem when I'm talking about stuff like this. But yeah, no surprise, a lot of greatest hits did really well that year. So we've got Lionel Richie's greatest hits, Cher, Simple Minds. Dangerous was a studio album. Diva was a solo album by Annie Lennox of Eurythmics fame. Michael Bolton had a greatest hits. Madness had a greatest hits. Genesis had a studio album out, and this one was a live in concert thing.
And also, of course, bear in mind that some of this stuff
could have been like a carryover from the previous year, so it could have come out in 91. So yeah, Pop by Erasure. This came out this year, 92. Abergold. I have that. Well, I actually have the version with the more gold on it, actually, which I bought later. Greatest Hits. I was a big Gloria Estefan fan in, I think, the 90s, late 80s, 90s. I can't remember. I had a couple of her albums, but I didn't have the Greatest Hits. I did have this, but I really now only like Stay on it. That's the only one I really remember. Oh, where, yeah, and so on. Automatic for the People came out in 92. Greatest Hits 2 by Queen came out in 91. And then this, Tubular Bells 2, was a 92 release. Yeah, so I'm sure we'll revisit some of these as we actually go through the proper 92 release schedule on Wikipedia. I nearly said Spotify there. Top 10 best albums of the year. So this is in music. So this is, all things considered, I suppose. So yeah, this was the year that the debut Rage Against the Machine album came out. Got REM, Automatic for the People, Pavements, Slanted and Enchanted, Alice in Cooper, Alice in Chains, Dirt, Tori Amos, The Earthquakes, Dr. Dre, The Chronic, Faith No More, Angel Dust, Sublime, 40 Ounces to Freedom, Sonic Youth Dirty, and Beastie Boys, Check Your Head. So all the albums have been named Albums of the Year for their hits in the charts. Yeah, so it's obviously they're pulling these. That's interesting, they're pulling those down from Best Ever Albums, which I used to look at actually, but we are fine with those Best Ever Albums and Album of the Year now. There's just so many ads on them. It makes it really difficult to record, so I don't tend to do that now. So let's go through and just quickly talk about some of my favourites from the year, which still are favourites. So early on in the year, this album came out. This is probably my first foray into shoegaze. I had listened to Cocteau Twins, but didn't have any of their albums. It was produced by Robin Guthrie of Cocteau Twins, and this definitely actually is one of my all-time favourite albums, regardless of genre. It's an awesome album. Didn't get very high in schools actually, but yeah, I just played this over and over and over again. It's brilliant. She's remained best appreciated alone through headphones. I think I would say that it's definitely a headphone album. I should actually, saying that, normally when I'm doing these episodes, I like to have something on in the background that I can just play to myself, and I should I've been listening to like UK 97 alternative in preparation for something else. Actually, no, the previous episode, that must have been a hangover from then. So I've been working my way through some 92 stuff. So let's if it is still on Spotify. Some of these albums haven't made it to Spotify. That has it. It is on Spotify. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, I love this album. I think, wasn't Mickey Barini... I'll include a link. I think she was interviewed on one of the Adam Buxton podcast episode a good few months ago. So I'll include a link to that actually, if I can find it on the web. It's a pretty interesting interview with her. Okay, what else came out that year that I have fond memories? Oh yeah, Vulgar Display of Power. Yeah, this. I picked up on the Band Around Cowboys from Hell, bought Vulgar Display of Power, bought Far Beyond Driven. I think really probably stepped off around there. I think I have a copy of this, but yeah. Certified double platinum, wow. Pretty sure I have a video from around this time. There's some two sort of videos I had from around this period where I started to buy like live videos, but they also had some on the road footage on them. And there were two Pantera toured with Typo Negative. So maybe it must have been a little bit later when I got, because I didn't get into Typo until, when was it? Yeah, thinking about it, I didn't get into Typo Negative until 97 because of October Rust, which we'll talk about when we do the 96 episode. That's when it came out in 96, but I didn't get into it in 97. Yeah, and there was a live thing about the band they did, which I bought, which had some stuff with Pantera because they were on tour together at some point. And I remember similar footage cropping up on the Pantera stuff, but I just can't remember the name of the video. Yeah. When did that come out? So all of these, the other thing to remember with this first half of the video is all albums that I bought at the time, literally when they came out, and still enjoy today. What I will say is that gives you quite a good yardstick for what I was obsessed with at the time. And then when I get on to talk about albums generally from 92, I'll start to talk about which ones I bought retrospectively. But this sort of gives you an idea of my music zeitgeist, I suppose, at the time. I loved this album. There are a few albums that I used to pick up because I really like the singles. So there was a couple of singles off this one, Higher Ground and Steal Your Fire. I don't know when Steal Your Fire came out. And I bought this and then Swagger. But I bought this because of Steal Your Fire. Whenever I heard that. Yeah. Interesting connection with, I saw here that a producer had previously worked with Texas. That must be Lloyd Cole and, was it the Commotions? Yeah. Oh, engineered on Pixies on Bossa Nova. When did that come out? 1990. Pierre Ibu. Ubu. Yeah. Oh yeah, this album. So there's two albums released very close here. This one, 22nd of June 92, and this one, 30th of June 92. So both these have a connection for me. What happened was I was the weekend after this came out, I went on like a sort of road trip, shopping trip with a couple of friends. One was a person, a technician that worked for me, and the other one was like a friend of a friend, well, his friend who I saw knew. And the friend of a friend brought along, while we were driving down, because I don't think I wasn't driving that day, brought along the Art of Rebellion and Dehumanizer. There was also a Primus album, which I can't remember which one it was, but I do remember these two. And literally the following week from hearing both of these albums, I went out and bought them. Yeah, this is really good, this one, actually. Particularly the track Can't Stop. Yeah. Excellent album. And I was listening to this again the other day, the Dehumanizer album. Pretty cool to listen to. Because the lineup was Yeah, so this was the same lineup that I saw live, a lot later, when they put together that Heaven and Hell tour, with the previous Heaven and Hell tour era live lineup. Because I think for Heaven and Hell itself, Bill Ward played on that, I believe, but then pulled out for the following tour, and Vinny Appice took over. And then he also played on, was it Mob Rules? Then Black Sabbath sort of fell apart again. Ronnie James Dio left, and then they sort of carried on with was it Tony Martin? Several albums, and then I think there was one album where they had guest vocalists and various other things before they ended up at some point on that timeline, recording this album. That's right, because now it's all sort of coming back to me, because they recorded, I should have just checked, shouldn't I? So we had, quite a run of albums there. So yeah, this is where it gets weird. So we got Mob Rules. So this was that lineup, I believe. Where have we gone? Yep, there you go. Then things get a little weird, but I actually still enjoy like the Sabbath albums where there isn't Ozzy or there isn't Dio fronting them. They're quite an interesting listen. This is the one with Ian Gillan, and the first time I became aware of him joining Sabbath was when they played, was it Reading? I think either Reading or the Monsters of Rock at Castle Donington, with him singing. And somewhere in the set they launch into this quite weird cover of Smoke on the Water, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. I'm trying to remember from some Friday Rock Show episode I listened to with Tommy Vance, where they used to play, live gigs from Reading or Castle Donington each year. Yeah, I remember this, and there's a whole story around. I should see if I can find the little video where was it now? Who did that cover? Yeah, Crusher, a Kerrang designer who worked on Ozzy's Speak of the Devil, deliberately submitted supposedly a subpar cover, but Arden loved it, I believe. So there's also, I'll see if I can find that. There's a clip of this Steve Jewell, or Crusher as he was known, talking about the whole thing. Yeah. It doesn't get very good reviews. It's commercial success. Yeah. But I do have a copy of it on CD. I made a point of sort of going through, and I've done an episode on CD box sets where I feature like a Sabbath box set of the first set of Ozzy albums, the ones with Ozzy in it. And then what I did was, at some point around when I bought that, or maybe before it actually, I started to just buy the Sabbath stuff. So I have everything up to the album before 13. I don't have 13, but I have everything else. So yeah, we got Seventh Star. So there's all these ones in between. Who have you got on this one? Oh, that's right. Glenn Hughes was singing on that one, wasn't he? I forgot about that. Is that right? Yeah. Eternal Idol, which has Tony Martin, or Tony the Cat Martin, I think is his nickname. I don't know why the cat, but anyway. Headless Cross, which I think was one of the first like non-Ozzy, non-Dio albums I bought. Because isn't this the one with Nightwing on it? Yeah. It's got Tony Martin on it again. Tia. Yeah. Dehumanizer, which is what we were actually talking about in the first place, from 92. Yeah. First in 9 years to feature original bassist Geezer Butler, so it's pretty. But I mean, I listened to this the other day, really enjoyed it actually. I don't know. There are certain things about the riffing that changes a little bit when Dio's in the band. I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know why that is, but yeah. I do remember this business. I did have years later I got hold of a bootleg, I can't remember from where, of Dio with Rob Halford, because of this dispute around this sort of reunion show that was going on. So yeah, they're out there somewhere. But probably find it on YouTube if you look. Is a recording of Sabbath. So this lineup without Dio and with Rob Halford. Yeah. And there we go. Both shows are unofficially recorded in China now. So there's audio and video bootlegs. There you go. I didn't know there was a video bootleg. I should try and find it. I only ever listened to this version of it for years. I think the version I listened to recently was just this. I'm trying to remember which copy I listened to. It must have been on my iPod, my old iPod Classics. Cross purposes. Who's on this? Oh, Tony Martin comes back, I think. And then this strange one, Forbidden. Doesn't this have lots of guest appearances on it, I thought? Oh, actually not as many as I thought. Okay. There we go. So anyway, quick go through that middle period, and I don't, as I said, look at the gap here to here, and I don't have this. So this is when Ozzy rejoined, and okay, so looks like Bill Ward wasn't involved. Right, moving on. Yeah, The Art of Rebellion, I did already mention that. Excellent album. This one, so yeah, another bit of a story behind this. It must have been, next month. I went down to Brighton again, this time on my own actually. I used to go down quite a lot. At that point, I think I don't know if at that point one of the music shops has started opening on a Sunday, even though it technically wasn't. They were sort of skating the law at that point. I think it was then. Anyway, I used to go down to Brighton at the weekends, go to the local Virgin Megastore and Our Price and HMV. And I was in Virgin Megastore, and at the time I didn't know what it was, but New World Order came on, and I thought, wow, this sounds amazing. And went over to the person on the desk and said, what's that? And they said, oh, it's Ministry's new album. So I didn't know who Ministry it was. But I bought it, and then I bought the video, what was it called? In Case You Didn't Feel Like Showing Up, which is like a live video compilation. There's also some sort of, in amongst the live stuff, there is another track in there which they didn't do live, I don't think. I can't remember which one it is, but yes, I bought this album, then started infilling during that year with earlier Ministry stuff. In Case You Didn't Feel Like Showing Up is the live album, but there is a video that accompanies that. But then didn't really buy anything after it. I just infilled back so far didn't go back to their sort of really early days, but then became a bit more aware of this thing called industrial metal, which we'll talk about later in this episode, in this video. Rage, yeah, amazing album. I can remember when I heard some of these on the radio, and then just went out and bought the album when it came out. You probably wonder why I'm doing it here and not showing the album cover. It's caused me trouble before. I had to reclassify a short because of it. I believe, because that was the only album I could think it was. I didn't get a strike or anything like that. It was just they wanted to reclassify it as over 18 because of the cover. Yeah, but oh yeah, I love this album. Awesome album. And then later on in the year, Utah Saints. I was still really interested in like electronic bands that weren't necessarily that heavy. There's a lot of ones putting out really interesting stuff. I'd mentioned in an episode, I think towards the end of the year, I talked a little bit about, was it Apollo 440? But also I was getting quite interested in electronic bands in the UK. So this is the UK based band that were playing around with like identifiable song samples. So we've got stuff like Something Good from Kate Bush's Cloud Bursting, I Want You, which had War Ensemble by Slayer, and I was into Slayer at that point still. And really interesting. I love listening to albums like that because like spot the sample. So it was it's a 93 release. It's re-released. Oh, actually, I made a mistake there, didn't I? This shouldn't technically be in here because it came out in the US in 92 and not until 93. So I should have featured this in the 93 episode. Didn't spot that. Okay, so let's pretend that never happened, shall we? But yeah, I'll have to see if that comes up again. I mean, I'll talk about it now, but that would, so it would have been May 93, but still a favourite now. Bought it when it came out. So yeah. Okay. So let's go down, see what other ones come up that I can talk about. So let's just go up to here. Right. So there's Spooky by Lush. Therapy were kicking around then. They'd formed in 89. We'll see if we can see. That was the EP. I'll see if there was an album out that year, I think, by them. I didn't buy this one till years later. Friend of mine that I used to play guitar with back in the day, he went on to be in a pretty good local covers band, and they played Coming to a Bad End, and I bought this album because of that, but I didn't buy it when it came out. Sap by EP, I think I'll probably talk about that in 93, because again with this, the version I bought of it had Sap and Jar of Flies, which was released in the UK, I think, as a back-to-back album in 93.
Yes, they also smell terrible.
So we've got Generation Terrorist by Manic Street Preachers, which I was actually just listening to the other day, and that's a favourite of mine, although I've not included it on this particular list to start with because I didn't get into it until their second or third album. So the album by them that I sort of stepped on with is Gold Against the Soul, so we'll talk about that in a later episode as well. So yeah. We've got, who else here? 7 by James. I do remember that cover, but I can't remember what was off that album. Yeah, I don't remember much from that. The one I always remember by them was it Sit Down? Was a big single I remember. There's Hormonally Yours by Shakespeare's Sister. I did listen to that in the last week or so and realised now over time I still really like Stay, but for me personally, I don't like the album as much now as I did when it came out. I did buy it when it came out. Oh, Get Ready by 2 Unlimited. Yeah, they were all over the charts at that time, but I didn't listen to that. Friend of mine, or one of the ones I was talking about when I went down to Brighton, and we were listening to The Art of Rebellion and the Sabbath album. I was a really big Rollins fan at that time and used to play this quite a bit. Little Earthquakes, didn't listen to that until a lot later. Full Display of Power he mentioned. We got Blazing the Northern Sky, which is Dark Throne second album, when they really sort of started that whole sort of Norwegian black metal necro sound. This is really good. I rediscovered this, I suppose, when I did an episode of my Music the Obsession podcast. And yeah, if you never checked this album, Industrial Hip Hop, I wish I'd listened to this at the time actually, but didn't discover it really until last year or the year before. It's got Television, The Drug of the Nation. I think the Spotify version, for some reason, certainly here in Canada, some of the tracks aren't on there. That you can see them sort of greyed out. We've got a few sort of alternative rock and what would you call it, like shoegaze bands, or bands that were influenced by shoegaze, with albums out at this time. In addition to the aforementioned Lush, so we've got Ride, and I can't remember where Curve sat in that. Oh, they were also shoegaze as well. I wonder if there's any Pale Saints this year or somebody like that. Debut album EP by Tool came out in '92. Bad Religion's Generator. Tanika Tikaram was the 4th album by then. Which album did I own? Ancient Hearts? Not sure. I know I have one of her albums, or had one of her albums on cassette, but I can't remember which one it was. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember this being really big, but I didn't listen to it till about a year later. I actually got it out from the library at the time. I may have ultimately owned a copy of it at some point. And, yeah, I did go and see them live in Halifax years and years later in the 2010s. 10th and 11th, Charlatans, Adrenalized by Def Leppard, 5th studio album by them. I wasn't really keeping up with them. Debut by PJ Harvey. This is a really good debut. It's got Dress on it. Laser Guided Melodies, if you like your space rock. They're a pretty interesting band. Didn't listen to them at the time. First Body Count album and all the controversy around that. I remember that at the time. Fire and Ice, I was still listening to Yngwie, and I did actually buy this. Had a friend of mine that was big into Yngwie. Skinny Puppy, fellow Canadians. They were on their 7th album by then. I think I've pointed this out before. You know, a lot of industrial bands have been kicking around for quite a while because, you know, industrial dates back to bands like Throbbing Gristle, who were, you know, around a long time ago. Pure by Godflesh, another industrial metal band. Second album, there was their first album. Was it? That was the EP. Was it Street Slave State? Second EP, Street Cleaner, was their debut. And I didn't listen to them until quite a while after Pure. It wasn't until, Songs of Love and Hate, which I listened to in 97 because it was on a 1996 Terrorizer list. And I'll be talking about 1996 very soon, actually. Yeah, they've influenced a lot of bands. And it's interesting, you know, it's worth checking out Jason Broderick's catalogue. He's been in loads of really interesting bands over the years. Early Napalm Death, Fall of Because, Head of David, Godflesh, Yezu. Yeah. So Bricks Are Heavy by L7. I'd forgotten about this album. That came out the year. I did buy it when it came out. Haven't listened to it for a long time, so I can't really tell you if it's stood the test of time. But lots of controversy around this band and an appearance on, was it the Word TV show? I think, yeah, that they performed on. End Complete by Obituary. So that was the one that came out after Cause of Death. And I lost interest a little bit because I really liked James Murphy's playing on Obituary or with Obituary, and he was only really on, I think, one album, Cause of Death. And so when I found out he left the band, maybe he was only a hired hand for that period, I sort of lost interest a little bit. So didn't keep up with them. Soup Dragons, Hot Wired. Now, where was... Yeah, I'm trying to remember their really big single. What was it? Was it a later album? Oh, yeah. Anyway. There was a track that they had. Let me see if I can find it, because a local band I used to go and see live used to play it a lot. Yeah, they did a cover of I'm Free. Okay. That's it. That's the one I remember. On this album. Never listened to that. I should check it out. This has got Friday I'm in Love on it. And I think it was one of those albums where I liked that track so much. I had the cassette for it, but I had one of those like auto rewinds, quite a nice like cassette player in my car. So, you know, I could play the track and then just wind it back and then play it again and keep on doing that. So I don't know actually how much of this album I've listened to, all, you know, how many times I listened to it all the way through. Frontline Assembly, what were they up to there? 6th album, yeah, there's all these industrial bands that are quite deep in now. Because when did they start? Yeah, another oh yeah, of course, Bill Lieb, Skinny Puppy. Yeah. Miss Fulber, he was also involved with... Didn't he have a connection with Fear Factory, I think? And Delirium, another interesting band actually, if you've never checked them out. New Wave Ambient electronic musical duo. They've done a few Sarah McLachlan remixes. But yeah, I really like them. But all of these bands I didn't really get into, if I'm honest, until the mid-90s. I picked up like a industrial metal compilation and they were on that. So yeah, it's funny, I didn't really go down the rabbit hole. I thought, I suppose I assumed that Monist Ministry were fairly unique and just hadn't really picked up on other bands that were existing in that sort of ecosystem for whatever reason. So yeah, didn't check them out. I wish I had, because like I said, there's loads of industrial bands out this year in different areas, and they're quite different as well. If you listen to Godflesh, they sound quite different to Frontline Assembly, who sound quite different from industrial hip hop and so on. But there is a common denominator there that you can hear. Fear of the... Where did we get to? Try not to jump over anything too much. Fear of the Dark. Who was in this album? Oh, so Janet Gers was in this album. Was on this album. Bruce Dickinson was, still in the band. And was it the X Factor where Blaze Bayley joined? Yeah, okay. So this was the last album for a little while to feature Bruce Dickinson, that's right, till his return in 1999, when, I'm assuming that's when, so Seventh Son of the Seventh Son was that the last one to feature Adrian Smith? Yeah. And then I don't know, I can't remember. Didn't Adrian Smith rejoin about the same time that Bruce Dickinson rejoined? So Adrian Smith had left before that. Janet Gers came in on No Prayer for the Dying. Yeah. And then we have Fear of the Dark. Yeah. I did listen to this a little bit. I have I made the point a few years ago of getting all of the CDs of all of the albums up to and including Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I have odd Iron Maiden albums here and there after that period. Some of the later ones when Bruce Dickinson rejoined, but apart from that, it's not a band I kept up with. And for the CDs, I did rebuy a lot of stuff. I had various Iron Maiden albums on vinyl. Well, I still have the early stuff, and then some stuff on cassettes as well. So, yeah. Henry's Dream, Nick Cave and the Bad Seed. Oh, this, yeah. That's another one I think I just got out from the library and listened to at the time. Stereo Lab, Utopia Banished by Napalm Death, The Ritual by Testament. Who was playing on that? Okay. I think at some point James Murphy played on a Testament album. I can't remember when. Oh, that was that really cool ABBA covers EP by Erasure. We have Change Everything by Delamitri. What single did that have of it? I was trying to remember, I got muddled up the other week. I was talking about Deacon Blue and I couldn't remember their hit, and then I realised, I think either during or after I recorded the video, that the band I was trying to think of was Delamitri and Nothing Ever Happens. Yeah. But that was out in the previous year, in 89, Waking Hours. So this is Change Everything, which I did have on cassette. I think it was on the strength of that previous one, and then decided I didn't really like the album that much. So Angel Dust by Faith No More have this. Didn't this have a couple of really cool covers as well on it? I always used to like some, like previously they'd done on The Real Thing, they did a Sabbath cover, didn't they? I think. But so I look on this. What was on this? Did this have? Yeah, this had Midnight Cowboy on it, and the re-release had easy. But I think at the time to get that, I actually bought a cassette single, because it wasn't on the album in 93. So I think there was a cover of it. That's the Faith No More version. When did that come out? December 92. Oh, that's right. It had yeah, that's it. It had Be Aggressive on it. Got Crimson Idol by Wasp, Aqua by Asia, Legion by Deicide. I mentioned Dehumanizer, didn't I? What album by Ian Rakim? Fourth and final studio album. Oh, Meantime by Helmet. Wow, second album. What was their first album? Was it Betty? No, Strap It On, that was it. Betty was the third album. Carcass Tools of the Trade. That was an EP. Art of Rebellion. Blues for the Red Sun. Didn't get into Caius until a lot later. Sort of got into them after they'd disbanded. Discovered them as a result of, I suppose, Queen of the Stone Age. And then I did buy Blues for the Red Sun on CD several years later. Again, another band I wish I'd got into at the time. Yeah, this is another band I got into retrospectively. I didn't get into this band until late 90s, early 2000s. And I think this was the first album I bought by them. I bought this, and I bought... what's the album with the story on it? Not falling into... Okay, maybe... Oh yeah, this one. 99. So, yeah, got into them sometime around that period. But did buy this. This has got Pull Me Under on it. Megadeth Countdown to Extinction. I do have that, but I didn't listen to it at the time. So that's right, I was trying to remember. Psalm 69, The Way to Succeed and The Way to Suck X. Yeah. Shades of God, third album by Paradise Lost. 92, they were already on their third album. And didn't buy that until after I picked up 1 Second, whenever that came out. House of Pain. I did listen to them a bit, but didn't have that album, I don't think. We got Your Arsenal by Morrissey. Who else? Jim Blossoms. Fontanelle by Babes in Toyland. I can't remember which albums we had in the house. I didn't buy any Babes in Toyland stuff, but one of my brothers was into them. So with L7 out, I suppose this would be what a period music, what they referred to as Right Girl or Right Girl. So, I used to be a live venue I used to go to called the 101 Club. They used to play a lot of music like that. But I can't remember whether that was in 92. I started going there or not. Solar Music. Oh, yeah, Fear Factory debut album. Tourism by Roxette. I didn't buy that, funnily enough. Copper Blue by Sugar. I think I listened to that a lot later because I was curious, because I'd heard about Bob Mould and his and Husker Du. I can't remember which Husker Du album I had. So I do remember checking out this album, but a lot later. Pop Will Eat Itself. Yeah, I probably got one of their earlier albums. Best of White Lion. What's this one? This is the fourth album. I have the first two Suzanne Vega albums. There's Gold Greatest Hits. These were interesting. So these EP, was it Broken and Fixed? I have these as like a back-to-back cassette because they came out the same year. And this was actually when I first started properly listening to Nine Inch Nails. I remember at work several people that were into extreme music going on and on about this album, and I didn't really like it that much. To me, it didn't sound very heavy. And then when I listened to these two, something clicked. They just sounded a lot darker. So I did buy these at the time they came out. Prodigy Experience, I didn't really get into them until Music for a Jilted Generation. But saying that, Charlie was a really big hit. Yeah, so I do remember buying this, Core by Stone Temple Pilots. Used to play it a lot. Got Dirt by Alice in Chains. I can't remember what year I bought the first Alice in Chains album, actually. Yeah, I have trouble remembering with them. Don't think it was 92. There's Meat Beat Manifesto, another in the British electronic music band. They looped, yeah, so I think they were on an electronic compilation I had, but I wasn't aware of them at the time. Okay, last quarter of the year. Yep. This is quite an interesting album. If you like slightly darker dream pop. I really need to go on a proper dream pop jag at some point. I mean, obviously there's bands that are connected to it through, or I'm aware of through me listening to shoegaze, but it would be good to do a proper deep dive one weekend into dream pop and see who I missed. Grave Dancers Union. I did buy this album eventually. I had when did Somebody to Shove come out? 92. So I did buy a CD copy of Runaway Train in 93. And I think it had Somebody to Shove on it. The Love Symbol album. Guar EP. Same Clown Posse. I wasn't really aware of them at the time. Oh, is he straddling an album out? Mudhoney had an album out. Were they third by then? Live by AC/DC. Sade, Love Deluxe. Haven't really listened to anything by her apart from what was the debut album? Because when we used to Diamond Life, when I used to drive down to college in Brighton way back in the early to mid 80s, we used to sort of car share over the course of 3 weeks, so all three of us could drive. We used to take it in turns, and one person was really big into this album, and I just got to the point. This album ended up for me a bit like what's that album, So by Peter Gabriel, where I just heard it so many times it just wore me out. Yeah. Homebrew, don't have that album, I don't think. Yeah, I bought Raw Like Sushi. That's a really good album. That's got Buffalo Stance on it, but wasn't really keeping up by 92. You can only buy so much stuff, and it's before the days of streaming. Sloan, yeah, they're a Canadian band. I've seen them live one time in the 2010s. Ace of Base, Happy Nation. Yeah, there's all these European pop groups around at that point as well. like dance bands, pop groups, Ace of Base, sort of thing. There we go. Nursed by Therapy. I did have that album because that had Teeth Grinder on it. That's right. I'd forgotten about that. I nearly saw them in Dublin in the 2000s. They were supposed to have played the commemoration gig for the unveiling of Phil Lynnott's statue when Gary Moore played, and he had this sort of guests. As guests, he had different members of Thin Lizzy lineups come in and play with him on stage, but it had a number of other bands playing there, and Therapy I think were due to play and they backed out at the last minute. I didn't go because of that. We did a spur of the moment thing while I was visiting my middle brother over in Ireland, and he said, there's tickets for this Gary Moore commemoration for Phil Lynott that haven't sold out. They didn't sell very well. Do you fancy going? And I said, yeah, we should go check it out. So we literally bought them that afternoon at a record store and then went that evening. And it was only afterwards I found out that Therapy was supposed to play, and they backed out. Someone else jumped in, and it was a bit of a logistical nightmare because they had loads of, like, I think they were using like a rack gear and loads of like quite elaborate rack effects and a laptop, and they couldn't get it to work properly, and they spent ages trying to get set up and kept everybody waiting, and people were pretty pissed. And I'm trying to remember the name of the band. It's whoever had the single Teenage Dirtbag, I think, whoever that was. But that, like I said, that was sometime in the 2010s. Are You Normal by Ned's Atomic Dustbin. Was it the first album I have by them? Yeah. I mentioned them in a previous episode, I think. Debut Rage Against the Machine album. Awesome album. No Effects, didn't listen to them until a lot later. This is a really good album. Aphex Twin. It's a debut album, but it sort of collects together a number of tracks over a period of time. But listened by Biohazard. Did I ever listen to that? Probably not. So what category were they in by then? They were... I think by the time I listened to Biohazard, they were definitely crossover thrash, I think. Ween. I think I'll listen. Yeah. Didn't really listen to them that much. Predator by Ice Cube. Came out that year. Holy Mountain by Sleep. Second album. So yeah. Before the infamous Jerusalem Stroke Dope Smoker, which is how I became aware of them, but a lot later. Fix, Utah Saints I mentioned, which as I realised after the fact actually came out in the UK in 93 the following year. The Chronic by Dr. Dre, I didn't listen to that until the 2000s, when I remember I took it upon myself. It sort of didn't carry on, but I was blogging on Mog, the music blogging platform, and I decided I was going to go through. There's an album called something like 100 Albums That Changed Music, something along those lines, and one of the albums on there is Dr. Dre, and I listened to it on, well, would have been just trying to think how I bought it. I must have bought it, because I'm trying to think, was it even on Spotify then? Did I have Spotify in the late 2000s? Probably not. Whenever I'm just trying to think whether when I did that set of like retrospective reviews of albums, whether it was 2008, 2009. Anyway, I ended up listening to this album like years, literally years after it was released. Okay, I don't see anything there. I'm going to have a quick look at the metal stuff. see if there's anything. So yeah, there's stuff like this came out that year which I wasn't listening to. So debut album by At the Gates, The Red in the Sky Is Ours. Didn't really listen to them until after they disbanded. So picked up Slaughter of the Soul, I think it is, but years, after it had actually been released. Guardian. Oh, Boat Thrower. Yeah, fourth album. It's amazing to think 92 they were already on their fourth album. Yeah, one of the early UK death metal stroke grindcore bands. So bands like this really were ahead of the, like they were timeline wise, they were up there with US death metal bands. So this was released after, I think, Celtic Frost split up for the first time. Blazing All the Sky, we already mentioned about that. Oh, Faster Pussycat. Did I have this album? No. I've got the first two and became aware of them as a result of that. Was it Decline of Western Civilization Volume 2 film? Yep. Never really listened to much, if at all, King's X. Fourth album by then. LA Guns. Put out Cuts. Triumph of Steel by Man of War. Zentrix Kin. I didn't become aware of them until... Well, they did that cover of Ghostbusters, didn't they? Is that the debut, the second album by Typo Negative? So I wasn't into them until 97 when I picked up October Rust from 96. Racer X, Stream Volume 2 Live. Oomph. So they're one of the, what's it called? Is it Neue Deutsche Haken? I think it is. New German Hardness. So they're sort of lumped in with bands like Icebreaker, Rammstein. Yeah, so I sort of know them, but didn't know about them at the time. Right, just trying to slot it into another bit of popular culture, which is films, 92. So highest grossing films between 91 and 92. So in the UK, we've got Basic Instinct, Hook, Lethal Weapon 3, Batman Returns, The Addams Family, Cape Fear, Beauty and the Beast, Wayne's World, My Girl, and What's the Gradle. Now, out of these, I've seen Basic Instinct, Lethal Weapon 3, Batman Returns, The Addams Family, Cape Fear, Beauty and the Beast, but Wayne's World. But I'm not sure. I'm sure I saw Wayne's World at the cinema, and I'm pretty sure I saw Batman Returns and possibly Cape Fear. But ultimately, I've watched those again on video and the other ones on video. Haven't seen My Girl. I don't think I've seen The Hand That Rocks the Cradle though. And I don't know if I've watched the whole of Hook. Number one films, what have we got? So this is again is the UK number one films. So drills down a little bit further doing this. Addams Family, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, JFK, My Girl, Father of the Bride, Cape Fear, Hook, and What's Great Racing Twisters, Wayne's World, yeah, Sleepwalkers, Batman Returns, Universal Soldier. Was that the one with Van Damme in it? Trying to remember. Is that Van Damme and what's the other guy's name? Oh, Dolph Lundgren, that's it. Yeah. Alien 3. Okay. Yeah, I didn't watch that at the cinema, I don't think. Patriot Games. Yeah, another one. Oh, yeah. Wow. Single white female, sister act. Death becomes her. Bodyguard. That came out over Christmas. I did go and see that at the cinema with a friend of mine, but I can't remember whether it was after. Yeah. Okay, highest grossing films of 92 in the US. It's nice, gives you a bit of a different perspective. So Aladdin, Home Alone 2, or gives me a bit of a different perspective, I should say, as I think most people watching this channel are from the US. Aladdin, Home Alone, Batman Returns, Lethal Weapon 3, A Few Good Men. Yeah, I saw that on video after the fact. Sister Act, that as well. Bodyguard, Wayne's World, Basic Instinct, League of Their Own. Didn't see that. So, looking at the number ones in the US, Hook, The Hand That Rots the Cradle, Medicine Man. Oh yeah, I did see that at the cinema. Wow. Wayne's World, Basic Instinct, White Men Can't Jump, Sleepwalkers, Basic Instinct again, Lethal Weapon, Patriot Games, Batman Returns, Unforgiven. Yeah, I saw that on video, I think. Sneakers, was that? Yeah, Security Specialist one. Passenger 57. There's quite a few here that I watched on video actually from this year. Bram Stoker's Dracula. I may have seen that at the cinema. Home Alone 2, A Few Good Men. Wow. Yeah, interesting year for films. Interesting year for music. Cool. Well, thanks once again for checking out this video. And bye for now, and I will catch you in a future video.